Hitler and his Nazi party into power and allowed all civil rights to be suspended. Hitler was working on his master plan for the Third Reich, but meanwhile, the auxiliary police, the SA, were in control of the streets. They made so many arrests that there was nowhere to put their prisoners.
At this time arose the bunkers, the terrible private jails of the SA. Taking away unfortunate victims became a customary right of the SA. The sort of violence that went on in our cities is almost beyond belief.
These so-called wild camps were improvised prisons. In Oranienburg, for example, a disused brewery was commandeered. While the propaganda film showed this as a disciplined re-education center, complete with morning exercises, the truth was very different. 900 people were crammed in here at the mercy of the SA, who tortured and killed with a completely free hand.
Everyone had their turn, of course. The Red Front, the Social Democrats, anyone who wasn't a fascist, and the Jews.
The SA's anti-Jewish campaign had been steadily mounting. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, legitimized it by announcing measures against all Jewish businesses in Germany.
Heute Morgen um 10 Uhr hat der Boykott begonnen. Wird bis die Mitternachtsstunde fortgesetzt. Vollzieht sich mit einer schlagartigen Wucht, aber auch mit einer imponierenden Manneszucht.
The SA needed no further encouragement. Their behavior became even more outrageous, and it was the Jews who bore the brunt of it. Even Hitler's supporters were shocked, and abroad there was outrage. Hitler reined the SA in. They had played their part. The regular police returned to the streets. For Hitler was working on a bigger plan. He had seen the SA's effectiveness in controlling opposition, but he was also aware of their crude self-indulgence, their corrupt leadership, and their lack of discipline. This was not the image he wanted to project. He knew exactly what he did want. Something that could take the fear created by the SA and refine it. A secret political police force to serve Führer, Party, and Reich. He called it the Geheime Staatspolizei, the secret state police. But it would come to be known by its abbreviation, a word that was to become synonymous with fear. Gestapo. Hitler already had security and surveillance units in place as a matter of course. But the Gestapo was to be something different. It was to be secret, but very well known. The new force had its headquarters in the Prinz Albrechtstrasse in Berlin. At first, it had jurisdiction only in the large eastern province of Prussia, and there were just 200 officers, all highly educated careerists. As their leader, Hitler had chosen Hermann Göring, among the most ambitious and vain of all the Nazi inner group.
Göring guarded his executive power over the police force in Prussia very closely. The Gestapo was his pampered child, and he knew only too well that it held the key to his power. The Führer enjoyed reading his spicy and highly dramatized secret reports.
Göring's brief was simple: to seek out opposition wherever it lay. But the Nazis' main enemies, communists, social democrats, and trade unions, had by then gone underground. Finding them would take skill, the skill of trained police. Göring made sure the new force knew that this was a different sort of police work. They were not there simply to pursue criminals.
Und alle diejenigen, die ausschließlich wegen ihrer roten oder schwarzen Gesinnung und zur Unterdrückung aller nationalen Bestrebungen in Amt und Würden sitzen, hinausfegen.
But Göring was soon to have competition. Heinrich Himmler and Reinhard Heydrich, two rising stars in the Nazi hierarchy, were casting covetous eyes at the new organization. Himmler had been at Hitler's side since the early days in Munich, capital of the southern province of Bavaria, where the whole Nazi movement had started a decade before. There, he led the SS, Hitler's personal security service. Under him, the SS had expanded, extending its reach over the Bavarian police. Not surprisingly, he was taking a close interest in the development of the Gestapo, as was his fellow SS leader Reinhard Heydrich, a clever and ambitious young Nazi.
Heydrich was the hidden pivot around which the Nazi regime revolved. The development of a whole nation was guided by his forceful character. Heydrich was, in fact, the puppet master of the Third Reich.
Himmler and Heydrich had recruited a third member of their team, a trained professional they trusted implicitly. An experienced, dedicated policeman, Heinrich Müller was destined to have a profound influence on the future of the Gestapo.
Müller joined the Munich political police as his first job, and he made a name for himself as a very effective surveyor of the communists. He, in many respects, fitted the mold. He was ambitious, he was ruthless, he was committed, he was obedient, and although he wasn't a Nazi before 1933, Heydrich and Himmler were very clear that this is the sort of person whose experience they needed.
Müller was unlike his immediate bosses. He rejected the trappings of power in favor of total, focused professionalism.
Any form of conversation with him was almost impossible. It consisted on his part almost entirely of coldly phrased questions and was largely an interrogation. He once said to me, "One really ought to drive all the intellectuals into a coal mine, then blow it up."
Even as the fledgling Gestapo was establishing itself in Berlin, the SS trio in Munich were embarking on a new scheme that was to mark out Nazi policy from anything that had gone before. Building on the idea of the bunkers, they were planning a camp near Munich in a suburb called Dachau. Here the SS were to concentrate all those deemed to be enemies of the state. By summer 1933, the scheme had taken off. 26,000 people had been interned in camps across Germany, several thousand of them in Dachau. Anna Prull was a member of a resistance group. Many of her friends were arrested for their political activities in 1933 and brought to Dachau.
The communist, Leonard Hausmann, was in the workers' home. I told him about the posters on the billboards, that Hitler is now Chancellor of the Reich. He then packed a few things and left his office. He didn't run away. He simply left the office. And when they arrested him, that was in March 1933, they took him to Dachau, where he was shot on the 17th of May.
Und dann haben sie ihn nach Dachau und am 17. Mai wurde in Dachau erschossen.
To the outside world, Dachau was presented as a rest camp. But soon the truth became obvious.
Von Dachau hörte ich dann,
we heard that Dachau was not a re-education camp, as they had always told us. You went in without any trial and didn't know how long you'd stay or whether you'd ever come out alive. And we heard that people were tortured there and beaten, and you could also die there.
The inmates of the concentration camps were officially held in what was called protective custody.
Protective custody in the Third Reich meant a knock on the door at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning by the Gestapo, being bundled off without packing any supplies or clothes, without even saying goodbye to one's loved ones, and being taken to a concentration camp, where immediately there would be a process almost of dehumanization.
I was taken into protective custody. They protected society from us, as it were, the other way round. And they didn't need any proof or anything. They could send you to a camp, an extermination camp, without anything. They didn't need anything to do it.
In the concentration camps, the SS trio had created the ultimate punishment for dissenters. In Berlin, the Gestapo was setting up a super-efficient machine for detecting them. For the power-hungry Himmler and Heydrich, the prospect of gaining control of both was irresistible.